Hey guys, welcome to another Facebook Live. Happy Tuesday. I hope the weather in your area is lovely. This morning here in Denver, we are actually in the middle of a snowstorm. So we've had unseasonably warm weather this winter. It's been ridiculously warm actually. And so this is much welcome by the entire state. Otherwise, Colorado is going to burn up this summer and we're going to have a lot of dry wells as well. So yay for snow. So thanks for hopping on today. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about broth. And I actually was going to show you how to strain your broth when you're done. But my batch of broth over here in my Instant Pot didn't cooperate with me this morning. So I don't have a completed batch. It still has like another hour before it's ready. So I'm just going to pretend to show you. So if you're not familiar with making your own bone broth, I have a video that I've linked to down in the video description below where I showed you how to make bone broth from leftover turkey bones around Thanksgiving. But you can use that same tutorial to make bone broth from any kind of bones that you want. I also talk about like the health benefits of bone broth and why you want to be drinking homemade bone broth over store-bought broth if possible in that video. So definitely check that out if you're new to bone broth. Before I completely dive into today, let me just introduce myself. I am Jessica Espinoza. I am a health coach and I'm co-founder of 20 Dishes with my partners Kelly and Orletha. You guys have seen them on here as well. And we are on a mission to essentially change the world through real food. And so we have a system of meal plans that we offer that's much different than other meal plans that you're familiar with. But we also are an education first company. We really believe in educating people about, all things real food and healthy eating, but we also want to branch out and really kind of show you all aspects of health, how to cultivate real health. Food is important, but other things are important as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. And we do these weekly Facebook Lives a few times a week, usually 3 or 4 times a week, and we share recipes or tips or tricks or just facts with you guys about healthy eating and healthy living. So there's some information down in the video description below. If you want to grab a free 5-day meal plan, you can kind of check us out and get a good feel for us. And then today we're going to talk about bone broth. So to start, I have a pot of Instant Pot broth over here. So I was going to actually gross you guys out because it was full of chicken feet. And I really wanted to show you guys chicken feet on, on Facebook Live. But maybe when this broth is done, if my dogs are being quiet, this afternoon I'll hop on here super quick and just show you guys what it looks like. But I know the chicken feet kind of freak people out. But let me tell you, if you can get your hands on pastured chicken feet and add it to your broth, you will have the most amazing broth. Great flavor and tons of gelatin. It will set up super solid in your fridge. So that's primarily why I like to add chicken feet to my broth, is because it gives you more gelatin. But can't show you that. So anyways, so we're going to pretend that I have bone broth. So one thing that I didn't show you guys in the demonstration that I did on Facebook Live before about how to make your own broth is how to strain it off. And I got a bunch of questions about that afterwards. So I'm going to stand back a little bit so you can see me. So this is kind of like my setup. I'm just going to show you how I do it. So I put my bones in my water and a little bit of apple cider vinegar in my Instant Pot, and I usually let that go for 2 hours. And when that time is up, I will take the Instant Pot insert out and just let it kind of sit and cool a little bit before it's just a little easier to handle. It's still going to be hot, so you're going to want to use pot holders on it. But then I have this, this is a melamine, I think that's how you say it, bowl, and it has a spout on it, which is one of the reasons that I use this bowl. So, and then I have a colander. So this is kind of a wide slotted colander. If you really want a super clear broth that doesn't have any like chunks in it. So you can see in here, like there's a little bit of like chicken broth residue that can kind of sink through these or slip through these holes here because it's not super fine. But if you want a really clear broth with no like little chunks, sometimes there's little chunks of fat and our seasoning, and like I use like roast chicken bones in here that have a ton of seasoning on it from where I baked it, so you have little seasoning particles and stuff like that. So if you don't want that, run it through a super fine mesh strainer. So this is actually a reusable coffee filter that is super handy for straining off things that you want to get every bit of residue off. So these are super handy, but you could use any kind of colander or strainer that you have, depending on what you want. So what I do is I take my Instant Pot with pot holders, because it's going to be hot, and be very careful where you hold it so that the steam from the broth doesn't come up and burn your hands, because I'm speaking from experience there. So I just put this on my counter, and then I pour my broth through the colander into this bowl. And then I actually have a whole bunch of stainless steel bowls that I can then pour this into to cool. So my process is strain off the bones, and then I can usually do, if it's like chicken and turkey bones, I usually will do 2 to 3 batches total with the bones. If it's beef bones, you can often get like maybe 4 batches out of that. So I will strain off the bones, put them back in the Instant Pot with more water, and do them again. And I really just kind of do it until the broth is pretty much clear, maybe has a tiny bit of flavor, and then I just use that for my soups and sauces and stuff like that. So once it's strained off, I let it cool to room temperature, and I work from home, so I just walk through the kitchen, and I have a spoon that I stir it with, and I just let it cool down. And then once the broth is cool to room temperature, maybe a little bit warmer, but just cool enough to go into cold storage, that is when I portion it up. So I used to portion all of my broth in mason jars, and I know people are scared to freeze in glass and mason jars, but it works really well. You just have to be careful. If you're going to freeze in a mason jar, you need to make sure you only fill it 2/3 to 3/4 full. Make sure you leave plenty of space at the top for expansion. And then when you put it in the freezer, don't put the lid on right away. So you want it to freeze solid in the freezer before you put the lid on. That will help your jars from cracking. Then when you want to use the broth, you need to take it out of the freezer and either let it thaw in the refrigerator, or you can let it thaw on your counter in order to get it out. Now, make sure you don't slam the jars around, and make sure you also don't expose that frozen jar to any kind of abrupt heat, because it will crack and break. So what I used to do when I was freezing in mason jars was I would either pull the broth out and let it thaw overnight or over a couple of days in the fridge, or if I needed it quickly, I would pull the jar out and let it sit at room temperature for a couple of hours, and then I would put the jar in some cool water and heat very, very slowly over low heat on the stove. So I would have a pot with water in it, and I'd put the frozen broth in there in the jar, in the mason jar, and that would thaw it out. But when you do that, you do run the risk of cracking that jar. And for me, bone broth is precious. It's like, I don't know, it's like gold for me. So I don't want to run the risk of breaking my jar and losing my broth. That makes me really sad when that happens. So actually what I do now is I freeze in Ziploc bags. And I know people are going to freak out about freezing in plastic, but I do this for a couple of reasons. One, it cuts down on the potential of breaking jars. Two, freezer space in my freezer is at a premium right now because I do so much batch cooking that my freezer is jam-packed almost all the time. And so I can pack a lot more bone broth in the freezer if it's in Ziploc bags and I just lay them, freeze them flat. I can pack a ton of broth in there versus trying to pack a bunch of mason jars in there and then worrying about them breaking. So that is the reason that I freeze in plastic bags. Now, freeze in whatever you want to and whatever makes you comfortable. For me, I'm not super worried about freezing in a Ziploc bag because A, I'm letting the broth cool before I put it in the bag in the first place. And then I'm also not reheating it in the bag either. I'm taking it straight out of the bag when it's frozen and tossing it in my pot. That is the other benefit about using a Ziploc bag is when you're ready to use the broth, you don't have to let it thaw. If it's frozen flat and hasn't gotten all kind of all wrinkly and stuck in there in the frozen broth part, you can just open up your bag and you can literally rip it along the seam here, and you can pop out your chunk of broth and toss it in your pot. So you don't have to wait for it to thaw, which is super helpful if you're on a time crunch for whatever you're making. So that's another benefit to freezing in broth. So now, if you've tried to pour up your broth in a Ziploc bag and you're sitting here, you're holding your bag and you're pouring, and then you're trying to like balance everything and it's sloshing all over the place. Well, yeah, that's not cool either. I've done that before. So what has been a total game changer in my kitchen are our 20 dishes handy helpers. Now you guys have probably seen Arletha talk about these before. I absolutely love these. So they store flat like this. I just store them up here in my cupboard. And then they're expandable. So you pop the legs up like this and they're expandable. You can do a full gallon size bag in here with no problem. And so you can adjust these little legs to whatever height you need. And then you just attach your bag. See if I can do this so you guys can actually see it. So I'm going to pull this up just a tiny bit since I'm doing, these are the quart freezer bags. So they're the heavier duty ones. And then make sure you always label what's going in here. I did not do that. So I'm going to do that right now because if I don't label it, I'm going to stick it in the freezer and then I'm going to forget. So this is going to be chicken broth. And then today, I can't remember what the date is today. I think it's like the 5th. So, or maybe the 4th. I don't know. We're going to go with 4-4. Close enough. Okay, so we've labeled our bag. We have our little handy helpers. These things are awesome. And then, let's see. All right, so I'm going to pull these up just a tiny bit more. So about that high. And then you just slip one side of the bag on there. And then you slip the other side of the bag on there. So you see that bag is standing up, nice and handy. And then you guys can kind of see that. So I have some broth here that was from a different batch. And it's actually already cooled. And I have it in another one of these melamine bowls with the lip or the pour spout. So that is the reason I love these bowls. So then I'm just going to, you guys, hold on. I'm trying to get this where you can see it. I'm going to just pour the broth right in here. So this is already cooled. It's at room temperature, so no worries about pouring it or it being too hot when you pour it into the bag. So that, I freeze them about, let's see if I can hold this up. So I freeze it about 1/2 to 3/4 full when I'm filling up the bag. So see how awesome that just stands there? Like no sloshing broth everywhere, no spilling it all over my counter and ruining everything. So these are super handy. I have 2 of them. Quite honestly, I'm going to be ordering like probably 4 more because I use them. So I told you I do tons of batch cooking. So I use them for portioning up soup. I use them for portioning up pretty much anything that you need an extra set of hands. And they have a nice little rubber base too so that it doesn't skid on your countertop. Once you put this down, it's not moving unless you actually move it. So these are super, super, super handy. That's why I call them the handy helpers. And then when you're done, you just slide the Ziploc bag out of the little lips and then you just close up the Ziploc bag. And what I like to do when I'm closing it up is make sure that you squeeze out as much of the air as possible. So that you get all of the air out of there, and then it makes it easier when you're storing them flat. So now I've got this beautiful broth in a Ziploc bag. I will just store it flat in my freezer like this, and it'll freeze flat so that it takes up a lot less room than mason jars. And then I can just rip open this bag and toss it in my pot whenever I'm ready to use my broth. So that is how I portion up my broth for easy freezing. The little handy helpers, again, total game changer. And these are actually on sale this month for April. We're doing a big handy helper sale. So you're going to be seeing this a whole lot in our videos. And then if you hop over to our site, I have a link down in the video description below. You guys can learn more about these and you can order a pair if you want. Like I said, I have 2. They store flat. They're dishwasher safe. I put them in the top rack of my dishwasher. Have never had any problems. And then I just store them up in my cupboard. And like I said, I have 2 of them and I'm thinking about ordering probably like another 6 so that I have a set of 8 of these little guys. They're absolutely awesome. Does anybody have any questions? I see we have a lot of people on here, which is really exciting. Thank you guys for tuning in. Do you have any questions about broth, about portioning up broth, about the Instant Pot, about the handy helpers, anything? Leave me a comment down below and let me know. I'm probably going to go ahead and wrap up here because I have my dogs sequestered upstairs and they're probably getting a little antsy. So I'm gonna go let them out, but hopefully this was helpful. Make sure you check out the other video I did on bone broth if you're not familiar with bone broth and want to learn more about it. And then leave me questions down in the comments below and I will get back over here and answer those for you. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I love doing these videos for you. Yeah, I will see you guys again soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.